The NFL draft is today, and come on, we got to sneak in one last mock draft. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day every single day. I appreciate my hashtag everydayers so very much. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. Terms and conditions apply. Today on the show, one final mock draft. But first, I want to go over the entire defensive back class. I haven't watched as many of those guys, just kind of spent my time a little bit more on other positions, but it's still a really important position to at least understand the main guys for. So I'm going to flash through those guys as fast as I can, and then we will do one final mock draft that hopefully can be a sort of smattering of hashtag my guys. So the first couple of names you have to know and be really familiar with are Malachi Starks and Nick Emenwari. Malachi Starks is from Georgia, but don't worry, he's nothing like Lewis Cine. Lewis Cine was a missile. Lewis Cine was a downhill player. Malachi Starks is not a terrible downhill player. The way he triggers downhill and the agility with which he does it is fine, but he's very much going to have to be a coverage guy. Some people have him top 10. This is one of those moments where I stray away from consensus, and I do so for reasons that I'm pretty comfortable with, but I don't have him as a first rounder. Neither do I have Nick Emenwari as a first rounder. I don't have any safeties as first rounders in this draft class, but they are still really likely to be the pick at number 24. Very much two names to watch out for. So Malachi Starks is very much a cover safety. He is problematic when he is blocked. There are a lot of really nasty reps of wide receivers taking him to the woodshed. I'm not talking about tight ends or O-linemen. I'm talking about like outside receivers blocking on the edge, digging him out and, sledding him 30 yards down the field. Really rough stuff. But he is very much your like finesse center fielder. I think he makes a great center fielder. And in fact, in the Patreon video that I made on him, patreon.com/LukeBrownNFL, I actually suggested that he moves to corner because he'll be a little bit less involved in some of the like in the middle fits. Like sometimes a slot corner will come in and like play force off the edge. And really you just have to be willing. You don't have to be the biggest guy for that one versus at safety, you might have to take on a fullback. You might have to end up, a guard might climb to you. You might have to beat that block a little bit more often. And I also think that some of the some of the angle issues that Malachi Starks had, he's really bad at taking bad angles. There's like a spatial and I don't think it's a technique or an experience thing. I think there's just a certain like mental acuity to spatial awareness to knowing and being able to like in an instant judge, okay, he's going that fast, I have to take that angle, that he just hasn't had. And he takes some bad angles sometimes. And I think that being a slot corner also mitigates that. But I understand that it's like asking for a position change for a player that most people think is just a top 10 safety. So I'm not going to be too loud about that one. As for Nick Emenwari, the thing you might have heard about him is that he is a god-tier athlete, 10 out of 10 relative athletic score. That's a composite of all of his combine tests, but he didn't do the agility drills. And I think that's really important to me that he didn't do the agility drills because he is not agile. You can see it on tape. He is not agile, and I think the reason he didn't run those tests is because they would have tanked his score. They would have tanked his draft stock. So that's immediately, I'm like, okay, well, the point of him is actually not that enticing. And he's a little bit more willing to be a box safety. He's a bigger body, but he's still very careful. He's not a downhill trigger guy, both because he's agility wise slow at doing it, but also because there's some hesitation. Sometimes he doesn't trust his eyes. Sometimes he's just coming in really careful, and then he'll be the nail, not the hammer in the tackle. Very non-Flores, both of these guys, very, very non-Flores. So what D-backs do I have in the first round? Okay, well, for starters, there's a corner from Michigan that probably will not be available here by the time the Minnesota Vikings pick at 24. That's Will Johnson. There's a little bit of a rumor about a medical thing that I haven't really looked that close at because he's going to be gone in like the top 10. Don't worry too much about it. He's a really easy cornerback eval. If he ends up being on the Vikings, we'll talk more about him, but I kind of don't think so. I think he goes well before that. A guy that does have a puncher's chance to fall to the Vikings at 24 is Jedi Barron out of Texas. His deal is, so he's touted as being like a versatile Flores player. He played nickel one year and then outside corner the next. He can play all the positions. And while that's true, great stuff, love to see it. In his entire senior year, he did a lot of very samey stuff. He played a lot of deep third, a lot of quarters, and Andrew Makuba, the safety out of Texas, was the one who was actually roving around the field. So Texas looked at both of those guys and they asked Jedi Barron to play a more consistent outside corner role, which he was very good at. And for that reason, pick him at 24. Very happy with it. Don't think he's going to fall to the Vikings. But if you're looking for like a versatile, Swiss Army knife defensive back like Josh Patelis, and you're just looking to like pair that with Brian Flores, even though we already have one in Metellus, so it would be two of those guys. But if you're looking to say, hey, Flores wants another one, Andrew Makuba is your guy, and I actually have Andrew Makuba as my favorite safety for the Vikings to take in this class, even though, so he's like 6 foot, and there are, I guess he's not like the biggest body, right? So he's a bullet, right? He hits like a missile, but there's going to obviously be limitations there. So he's not a guy that I have as a first rounder at all. Will Johnson, of course, you're never getting this guy. Jedi Barron would probably be, or Jade Barron would, I think is how you say it, would probably be the guy at 24 that's like most realistic that I'm actually excited about. There are a couple other guys that I have as first rounders here. One is Savon Revel from Eastern Carolina. Bit of a hot take by me. A lot of people have him more as a second round type of guy. And there's two reasons for that. I think most people agree his tape's really good. He's a really good corner. And in ways that's not just him dunking on lesser, people at Eastern Carolina. And what is that, the Sun Belt? Or the Atlantic Athletic Conference or something like that? But it's not just that he's dunking on lesser competition. And you can actually see him play. Like he played Michigan a couple years ago and played really well against Michigan in that game. J.J. McCarthy went off in that game, picking on the other defensive backs. But he played really well in that. So you can see that. And that's not my concern at all with him. I think he kind of passes that test for me, which is a test you have to put on a small school guy. But for me, he passes it. It's part of the reason people don't like him is because of the small school thing, but also that he got injured. I think he tore his knee up in his final season. All the reporting is that nobody's really concerned about it now, that he should be ready to go for camp, but people in the media who can only know that for so sure are going to sort of sink him down the rankings a little bit because of that. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the first round, and I would love to see him to the Vikings in the first round. The other guy I have as a first rounder, but I'm really soft about it, is Maxwell Hairston. Also has some issues, some non-football stuff. There's an injury and stuff but I like the tape that I could see. He got hurt, so I couldn't see a lot of the tape. A lot of the Kentucky tape that I have access to did not contain Maxwell Hairston. But I thought he was a pretty good corner, but I didn't actually get that close a look at him. So that's like sort of a soft take, but everybody says that he's like a back end of the first kind of guy. Sure. Nothing about that really threw me off. There are a couple of more DBs that I want to talk about, and then we'll get to our final mock draft next on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by Monarch Money. Hey, have you ever woken up and been like, oh no, the money gone? Where'd the money go? In life, unlike in football, cap do not go up. We got to watch our money. And that's where Monarch Money can help you. It's your personal CFO. It's so much more than just a budgeting app. It does help you manage your spending, figure out what you're losing all your money on, but it's also a complete financial command center that can help you manage your investments, build wealth, and even helps you manage a joint account with your partner smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without any of the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Today's episode is also brought to you by Gametime. Look, we might be getting to the last Wolves games, okay? That last game over at what is it now, Crypto Arena? Didn't look so hot, but maybe I'm wrong. Or maybe you should get on it if you're trying to get to one of those two Wolves playoff games. Check out Gametime. Prices on the app go down as tip-off gets nearer and people are trying to offload their tickets. Their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. buying last minute for sporting events like that or concerts, comedy, theater, whatever. And their all-in pricing means there are no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Moving on here with the Locked On Vikings podcast. Love that you're coming and checking this out. Hey, when you're done here, the Locked On Podcast Network does a yearly tradition where we do a mock draft. All 32 of us team hosts all represent our own teams and do a mock draft. I picked at 24 in that one. And if you want to see who I picked, go over to Locked On NFL Draft and you can listen out to the whole thing. It'll probably, by the time you're done listening to this and done listening to all those, you'll probably be right about at draft time. It'll eat up your whole day if you want to do that. Trying to pass the time because today is going to go by slow. But for the rest of us, let's continue onward. So there is a sleeper, I think, of a sleeper of an idea at 24, of a possibility at 24. I'm pretty sure the Vikings are high on Trey Amos, the corner out of Ole Miss. Most people have him as a second rounder. I think he's a good corner and a little bit of a bozo, but I think a lot of the fundamental stuff that I want to see in a corner, I see in Trey Amos. And a lot of it comes in off-man positions and like with a lot of cushion. When you play with a lot of cushion, you play like Brian Flores. Brian Flores corners have a lot of cushion. You don't get the luxury of playing press a lot because Brian Flores blitzes a lot. And very famously, you're not allowed to play press when you have a blitz. You have no help over the top. You can't play press. So Trey Amos plays a Flores-y style of corner. I like what he does in the run fit and as a force and stuff like that. Can just kind of overrun stuff, get out of position. He can be a little bit of a bozo. So I see him as a third rounder or maybe even a later first rounder, like if they trade down to like 29 or something. But I also know that Ben Gessling, who has a track record, kind of a penchant for this kind of thing, where he'll put someone in the mock draft and it'll be like Lewis Seen and like he kind of knew. He has been talking about Trey Amos a little bit. So a name to potentially watch as someone that they're really interested in. Another corner that I watch that I don't think is very interesting for the Vikings is Azareye'h Thomas. Not because I don't think he's a good corner, but because he's a press man corner. And so like the point of it, this long-armed, big physical, it's the point of him to get him on the line and jamming the heck out of dudes. And that's not really compatible with the way Brian Flores wants to play. I think if he ended up in Minnesota, or if Brian Flores inherited him by getting hired to a team that had him already there, he would figure something out. But it's a little bit sort of pickles and peanut butter. And I don't know if they would do that on purpose. So I don't know if he's going to be there for them, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him go in the second round generally to somebody else that's a little bit more open to press. There's a couple other D-backs. There's a couple guys from Notre Dame I should probably talk about. The first one is Xavier Watts. He's a safety. Some people see him as a bona fide first rounder. I don't see it at all. I have him as a third. I don't really like him at all. I'm way lower than consensus on him. And consensus doesn't see him as consensus first rounder anyways. But the reason I'm not a fan, just Charmin soft. Get him in the run fit, watch him get blown up a little bit, and you'll see kind of what I'm talking about. Very much an only cover safety and not the kind of aggressive player that we're looking for this sort of defense. The other DB is the one I'm very interested in. I'm intrigued by. It's Benjamin Morrison. So here's the deal with Benjamin Morrison. He would probably be my CB1. I didn't watch Will Johnson that close because I don't expect him to be available for the Vikings. So pending if I would have watched Will Johnson more and liked him more. But outside of that, Benjamin Morrison is my favorite corner tape that I've watched. The problem is, and the reason I have him as a third rounder, is that he has catastrophically bad medicals. He has a hip labrum tear that teams are very worried about. And it's not just speculation there. There's been reporting around his medicals that teams really don't like it. And that not just as a risk of him getting injured, but a risk of him not necessarily being the athlete anymore that you see on tape because of those injuries. It is deeply frustrating because I love his tape. I think it's really awesome. And if you draft him and you get lucky, you could have a genuine superstar, but you'd have to get lucky. You're taking a huge risk there. And I think you have to kind of say, okay, I'll throw pick 50 at it, but not pick 5. That's probably the bench. That's probably a little high on Morrison's tape if he were healthy, but the whole thing, the whole problem with him is medicals. And unfortunately, in this particular instance, it's a legit problem. Unlike with Savon Revel, it doesn't sound like it's a legit problem. And differentiating those two things is doing a lot of work on this board. There's one other DB that I ended up watching. It's a thinner group for me, not because it's a thinner group of players. There's a whole bunch of people that I just like didn't get to, but mostly because I don't really like watching DBs, so I didn't do as much of it. But it's Billy Bowman Jr. He is a very popular suggestion for the Vikings at 97. I would like it at 97. He's a puppy. He's just very overzealous. That's the way that I can describe his game. I think he's the kind of athlete that you want, or maybe he's not quite the kind of athlete that you want, and he has to sort of really, really, really book it to get from point A to point B, and then he ends up overrunning a lot of stuff. That's the problem. He will overrun things, over pursue, just get a little bit too, take the cheese all the time. Just a little out of control. But if you can chill him out, you've got a player, but I don't know if you can chill him out. I don't know if that actually works out. So to me, that's like a mid-round. Take him in the Brian Asamoah spot. And if he does end up being a special teamer for his whole rookie contract, you're not like that sad about it. That is it for the DBs that I know. So let's get into the mock draft. So I've been using the PFF mock draft simulator for the entirety of this draft season. We're not going to change that now. We're going to open this up to trades. We're going to do a whole free mock draft. I haven't done one of these yet myself. I used to do these like every Monday. Didn't do that this year. Haven't done any. So let's do a good old fashioned like mock draft Monday style mock draft. But here's one thing that I will say, unless somebody insane is falling like Will Johnson, I'm probably not going to trade down. And yeah, there he goes. Okay, he went 12 in this simulation, so that's probably not going to be it. And here we are at pick number 24. Fairly chalk outcome. We don't have any of the crazy guys that are sometimes there. No Jedi Barron, no Will Johnson, no Kenneth Grant. Those are the like, oh my God, are those guys falling kind of names that you might even see them move up a pick or two. Or at least if it were me, I would move up a pick or two. So in terms of cornerbacks, we don't really have the major names, right? We got Trey Amos, we have Savon Revel and Maxwell Hairston. Those are all very much guys that I think are reasonable in the second round. In terms of guards, Tyler Booker's on the board. I would totally take him at 24. In terms of defensive line, nobody that I would take at 24 is there, but that's literally only the Michigan guys for me. You can listen to yesterday's podcast, but hey, Walter Nolan is here. Tyleek Williams is here. There's definitely options. So a trade down sounds absolutely fantastic. And we actually have an offer from the Washington Commanders. So I've done this in the mock sim before, so I know it works half the time. We can trade back to pick 29, move back 5 spots for our trouble. We take our 97th pick and trade it for the 61st pick. So we're turning our compensatory third into a second, and we're going to get another 4th rounder on top of it. Let's see if Washington will take that offer, and indeed they do. So we're back to 9. We traded past both of the safeties. I love it. Omarion Hampton also went, Shamar Stewart went, and Luther Burden went to Detroit. That would be very funny. But now we're sitting and looking at a lot of the same names. I suddenly get a lot happier with Trey Amos. I like Savon Revel a lot as well. I'm going to see if I can move back just a scotch more. We'll see if the Giants want to come back in for a quarterback. Let's see if we can do that. We are going to see if we can grab another second rounder, perhaps. I'm going to do a little bit of negotiating with the New York Giants, and I'll let you know what we got. That'll be next on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs, the place that some GMs might find themselves looking at in about a week or so. Because after the draft is kind of when you do some of that, or at least scouts. As a small business owner, your work does not end when everybody else is clocking out. You're constantly thinking about it, especially when you're in a hiring cycle. You're constantly thinking about that decision. It's like the highest risk that most small businesses take when you think about it in terms of like salary amounts and the amount of time and resources that go into training a new hire. You have to make that decision right. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. And they even have a new feature that can help you write job descriptions quickly, and you can put the hashtag hiring frame onto your profile picture to reach qualified candidates twice as much. That's right. You can double your reach. 72% of small businesses say that LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, moving on with the Locked On Vikings podcast. So here's what I got. I've got 34 and 65. So we're going to get another second round pick. We're going to take our 29th pick and move it down to 34. So we're going to end up picking 3 times in the second round here. And I'm giving up my 4th as well. So I'm giving up 29 and 128 for 34 and 65. This has a 30% chance to be accepted. No, they're not going to do it. What if we throw in a 6th rounder this year to make this a shorter podcast? Still not there. Let's throw in a 7, or let's throw in like a pick next year, like our round 5 for next year. That they took. Okay. So we had to use a day 3 pick next year to make this happen, but now we're picking 3 times in the second round, and we've got our pick of the litter at cornerback. I still have Savon Revel, who I absolutely would take at pick 24. I'm slamming it here at number 34, but I picked up a whole bunch of extra stuff for my trouble. All the other corners are going off. There goes guys like Tyreek Williams and Tyler Booker, who I also like here. We're going back to 61. Oh, 65 is the first pick in round 3. What? I'm stupid. Okay, we're picking twice in the second round, and now we have the first pick in round 3 instead of the first compensatory pick in round 3. Let's see what kind of guards we got looking there. Oh, baby, we got Jared Wilson, center out of Georgia. He's one of my favorites. He's like a huge hashtag my guy. I am slamming that. Let's see what we got for defensive line here. Oh my God, we got my crush CJ West. Holy moly, I am so happy. We're getting all of the hashtag my guys. Savon Revel, Jared Wilson, CJ West. We walk out of there with that. I'm doing backflips out on the tiny little balcony that my apartment has, and I'm gonna fall off and break my neck and then wake up from the dream that I'm in right now. I'd be very, 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 very happy with this draft, and I kind of don't really care what happens with my last pick of the draft, which is pick 139. If you remember, I gave up the 6th to make that little trade around thing happen. But that can be the power of like trading down, especially if you get to charge New York the quarterback tax because they're coming up for like Jackson Dart, or if Shedeur Sanders is falling or whatever. That's like a thing you got to worry about. We talked about that on Monday. I like the idea of walking away with a quarterback. So let's see what kind of quarterbacks. There's like Riley Leonard, Dylan Gabriel, and guys that you like. There's like Max Brosner if you want. I'm not going to put Riley Leonard on the screenshot just because that's the only thing people are going to pay attention to, and I don't want that to happen. We could also look at halfbacks. We could look at kind of anything in here. Once you're in the 4th round, you're just looking for anybody who's going to be able to contribute to your team in one way or another. You could get like Jack Kaiser, linebacker out of Notre Dame. You can get another, not 2 of like the Georgia edges, but you could get some of their like depth guys. You could get Ty, or is it Ty? Ty Hamilton, the other D lineman out of Ohio State, and a whole bunch of people that are all available. I'm going to grab Quincy Riley, corner out of Louisville. That's a shout out to Tyler Forness. 4-0 Fridays has been an awesome thing all year long, or all draft season long. Every Friday I've had Tyler Forness on. We've debated, we've disagreed. We've talked about like philosophically, like what we think about the draft. It's been a fun thing. Quincy Riley is a huge hashtag his guy. Actually, so is CJ West. We're like super lockstep on that one. So that'll be a little shout out to him. And that actually ends my draft. I only ended up with 5 picks, and I actually gave away a pick next, but it's just a 5th rounder next year. So I'm totally fine giving that up for how excited I am about these players. These are, to me, that's 3 players who have an outsized impact on the team. Jared Wilson is obviously in an interesting spot because we just signed Ryan Kelly, but he's over 30. And he's expensive, and he's also coming off injuries and stuff. So they're also taking their backup center in Michael Juergens and moving him. So I think I kind of regret not getting to know the centers a little bit more. The Vikings have been linked to Gray Zabel a little bit for this exact reason as like a 1st round pick. If they do that, I would expect that's like a 1st round center. And then Ryan Kelly's there to like paper things over because Gray Zabel is super, super raw. He's the guy from NDSU. But there's a lot for me to be happy with. So here's the plan. I should probably tell you I only ended up with the same 4 picks I had before. But it's, 3 of them now are on day 2, and then one 5th rounder where I took Quincy Riley. So here's where I'm at right now. We're going to be live on Locked On Vikings and on Locked On Minnesota Sports. So you can come check that out. You can come hang out. I'm going to be live. I'm going to try to be live for all of the first night. Everybody is going to be on at least by like pick 10, and then we'll react to pick 24, whatever they do, trades, whatever's happening. Then we are going to, I'll have, of course, a recap pod up every morning all weekend long. So you can listen to whatever happens. You can listen to a recap of that if you miss it or you just want the analysis. And then on day 3, so I got last place again in the Minnesota Football Party betting contest. So I will be live wire to wire on day 3, all like 7 hours of it. So come by, keep me company, give me something to talk about, okay? Because it's going to be a slog. And we will try to go from there, but I will have a show up all weekend long. There will be daily podcasts through the weekend. So then I might take a day or two of a break after that. So I will see you all for that. Everybody have so much fun in the draft. Have a good time, okay? Don't be super mad if they trade down. If you stay up late to watch them trade down, don't be cranky about it, okay? That's a good choice. It's actually great, and everyone in the whole league wants to do it. And if the Vikings are the ones that swing it, that means that they found a way, that they won the bidding war. Since we have a little bit of time, I want to leave you with this as the last kind of the parting word before the draft starts. Get excited. Let yourself be excited. I think too often, especially when, we didn't get a superstar rookie, phenom last year or the year before, right? Not since Jefferson, really. Have we had somebody just show up rookie year and totally kill it, right? The closest thing we had was Addison. He was a good player, but didn't give us that dopamine, right? And when you haven't had it for a while, it's easy to get discouraged. And with the reputation that Kwesi has gotten, very much entirely because of that 2022 draft, which is the only one we really have seen enough from to be able to judge, it's easy to get discouraged. Don't be. You get to be excited. This is the one time of year where everybody gets to be excited. Even in free agency, most teams are adding guys, and you got, everybody adds new guys and gets, people to talk about. You got teams like the Seahawks and 49ers that clearly lost more than they gained, and you can't be happy, right? But the draft, everybody only adds. Everybody just gets to be happy. And there is something to that's super beautiful, I guess, is what I'm reflecting on. But it's also the balance between not being too, there's no sweeping declarations, right? I hate draft grades, and I'm not going to talk about it much on this show, if at all. Draft grades to me are one of two things, right? It's either just a correlation metric with some writers' draft takes. I give this an A because I had him this high too. I give this an F because I didn't have him this high. But it's really just, did I agree with it or not, right? And it's touted as this objective measure, and people will even try to do math with them, right? They'll compile a bunch of draft grades and do consensus draft grades or whatever. Or it's going to be heavily influenced by things like the consensus draft board. Arif Hassan's consensus big board is a project he's been doing for forever. There's many like it, but that one is his. And it's on wideleft.football. It's free to look at. So go pull it up, make it your cheat sheet for the day, and cross guys off as they go. But understand that none of this is gospel and that we don't know jack all. We don't know who had a good draft. I will always remember the 2023 Lions draft as the one where that truly was the most out of this world consensus was so wrong on these guys. That was Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Brian Branch, who's the other guy? Jack Campbell, also a D tackle that we don't have to talk about. They got lambasted because they went running back, tight end, safety. And it's not the right positional value. And it's one thing I haven't talked a lot about this year is how the Vikings needs correspond to positional value, mostly because they're pretty valuable positions. D tackle is pretty valuable. Corner is pretty valuable. Safety is incredibly underrated valuable. A lot of people think that safety is tight end and it's this position you shouldn't spend a first rounder on, but that's insane to me. Safeties are coverage and coverage is king. So it's kind of it hasn't come up a lot, but it also just shouldn't. You got to draft the guys that you need and draft the guys that you like. I love what Luke Inman says all the time. Go get your guys. Take your guy, be happy with a guy and go get him. and figure out the redundancies later, figure out the overlaps or what you have to do on that draft need you didn't figure out. Go back into the free agent market and figure it out from there. Whatever it is, like this whole rambly thing, the point I'm trying to get to is there are no blanket rules. And if the Vikings break what you think is a blanket rule, ask why and then determine if you're satisfied with that. Don't pick injured players. Okay, but is this player really injured? Or is it a Savon Revel situation? Or is it a Benjamin Morrison situation? What is the reporting like? What is the injury? Is it a torn ACL that happened in July that he should be well past? Or is it his third ACL tear and it's degenerative and now we're not sure? Like it's different. So take everything in stride, take the information that you can, but no sweeping conclusions, okay? Except the one that lets you be excited. Then you go ham. Nobody's going to punish you, okay? They can't possibly disappoint you until they play a football game, with few exceptions. So get hype, get happy, and I'll see you tonight. And as always, Skol.